All right, thank you so much everyone for coming to the operator meeting today. My name is Hannah Hickam. I'm the executive assistant and I will be your host for today. I don't think we have any announcements. So first up is going to be Jeff Robbins with the Commission's hearing process for OGDP applications. And his slide is next. All right, Jeff, check your mic real quick and then you can take it away. Oh, okay. Let's see. So you can't hear me? You cannot. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, yeah, sorry. I haven't unmuted people yet. Give me just one moment on that. My sincere apologies, folks. I think I can ask you to unmute and then I'll get the rest of them while you're chatting. Can you?
Okay, can you hear me now, Hannah?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much. Sorry about that, Jeff.
No problem. That's really weird when you're like trying to convey that you can't unmute, but you're muted. But you got it. So you're very good at that. So before us is a document that the Commission will use. It is to try to provide some process improvement, to try to provide some transparency with operators as they move forward with the new process of bringing OGDPs to the Commission. I think you've all seen as we've had the first few OGDPs move through the process, and commissioners have had questions or issues. What we're trying to do is establish some process improvements so that operators and staff and commission all has an understanding of the method within which we will try to review OGDPs. So the first part of it is that we have asked that staff have the OGDP director recommendation and the packet fully available for the Commission 2 weeks ahead of the Commission hearing for that requested OGDP. Generally, we have our hearings on Wednesday mornings, and so that would be 2 weeks ahead of that would be the date within which any OGDP application materials and the director's recommendation would be provided to the Commission. At the time that the hearings manager provides that to the Commission, the director's recommendation will also post to the pending applications for oil and gas development plans page, and will also be uploaded to the Commission's e-filing system. Next slide, please. Or if you can just move to the next page, thanks. Okay, so the next piece that we have contemplated is that we will arrange for each commissioner to have 30 minutes with the hearings manager, or I'm sorry, with the permitting manager or her designee, the OGLA that was responsible for the OGDP development. And that would be, so if we're 2 weeks out, we get the Wednesday, 2 weeks before the meeting, we get the packet. Then the following Tuesday, each commissioner will have 30 minutes with the permitting manager to ask questions of the OGDP. If there are multiple OGDPs that are on the following week's agenda, each commissioner will still just have 30 minutes. That is to be cognizant of the permitting manager's time. We are hopeful that that will give commissioners an opportunity to have an oral dialogue with the permitting manager about issues that they may have discovered relevant to their review of the OGDP. That may or may not take care of issues. If it doesn't, then the commissioners are asked to provide to the hearings manager the next day, which is the Wednesday before the next Wednesday's hearing, any issues, questions, concerns that they have identified. The hearings manager will work with COGCC staff as well as the applicant to address, if possible, the issues, questions, or concerns raised by any commissioner during that week before the OGDP hearing. This also will allow the applicant and staff to be aware of areas of questions or issues or concerns so that the applicant and COGCC staff will have an ability to ensure they have the relevant subject matter experts available at the OGDP hearing on the following Wednesday to respond to any issues, questions, or concerns from the commission. So again, it's an effort to be transparent in our review of OGDPs. It's an effort to allow for engagement with staff and the operators about issues of concerns. It's an effort to ensure that any issues that may arise, that they arise ahead of the actual OGDP hearing to the best extent possible so that we're not having everyone sort of scramble to issues of concern that may arise at an OGDP hearing. And if you could flip to the last page. So following that, then the hearings manager will proceed with the scheduled hearing to review the OGDP. Again, this is for unprotested OGDPs. We anticipate that we would have the following 5 elements to the OGDP hearing. An element of public comment, which could be at the start of the OGDP hearing or after the operator's OGDP presentation. We then would have an overview of the OGDP by the applicant. Again, the length of that would depend upon the complexity of the OGDP, as well as responding to any questions, concerns, issues raised by commissioners. We do note that we have heard from commission that if there is a Rule 604B4 exemption, the substantially equivalent process, then again, depending upon the complexity of it, we would ask the operator be prepared to review the criteria set forth at A through G of 604B4. The operator, there would be an opportunity for staff to make any remarks it deems necessary, including addressing any of the questions, concerns, or issues. And then following all of that, there would be the commissioner's questions, comments, and deliberation, as well as a vote on the OGDP. Next slide. And then that is the element for unprotested OGDPs. Protested OGDPs would follow our normal Rule 509, 510, and the commissioners would not engage in discussions with staff, the applicant, or the protestant, because we would need to hold the hearing under the rules 509 through 510. So that is our suggestion on how we might move forward with OGDP consideration. We appreciate everyone understanding that we are sort of developing the ship as we're moving forward with it. We think that this should provide some predictability and certainty and some process improvement for the commission's OGDP review for unprotested OGDPs. And again, we've not had a protested OGDP yet, but we do have a process for that as well. So with that, Hannah, I'm not sure what your protocol is, but if folks have questions, I'm happy to try to answer them, but hopefully this is fairly straightforward.
Thanks, Jeff. We usually take questions at the end, but if you need to go, then we can take your questions now.
I'm going to listen in, so I'll just mute and unvideo and listen to the rest of the meeting this morning. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. So folks, we'll take questions at the end. Just go ahead and chat those in as you think of them, and we'll make sure to get you the best answer after we are finished with all the presentations. And let me just get the next presentation up, and then we will get on. Let's see, Sabrina is up next, I believe, with OGDPs with State Land Board Minerals.
Good morning, Hannah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sabrina Trask, the Planning and Permitting Manager. And I actually I'm not going to talk for 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to talk for 3 or 4. But I do have a couple of slides that looks like Hannah's got ready.
Yeah, I believe, I think this is it. So you can
go. That's it. Yeah, next slide, please, Hannah. So there are a few processes in our new rules that require the operator to communicate with the State Land Board. So specifically Rule 303E1, that is the OGDP Notice of Completeness determination. If the State Land Board has minerals within your OGDP, operators are required to notice the State Land Board. And then Rule 314F1, that's the same thing, but for a cap instead of an OGDP. We just wanted to clarify that per Steve Freeze at the State Land Board, they would like all email and all correspondence related to COGCC information, whether it's notifications or mineral leases, surface bonding, anything related to an OGDP or a CAP application. All of the correspondence should be directed to Steve Freeze at the State Land Board. His email address is highlighted there in red, steve.freeze@state.co.us. That's just a very quick reminder and a request from our friends over at the State Land Board. Hannah, next slide, please. And then a little while ago, we were contacted by COGA with a few questions that operators have been asking of COGA, and COGA asked of us to answer. And one of those questions was, what is the definition of immediately up gradient? So one of the ALA criteria, it's rule 304B2B7. And that ALA criteria is if the proposed oil and gas location is within the boundaries of or is immediately up gradient from a mapped, visible, or field verified wetland or riparian corridor. So what is immediately up gradient? We do not have a specific distance. There's not a specific setback. Some things to consider when you're reviewing your proposed location and alternative locations for your ALA. First of all, look at obvious proximity. If there is a wetland or a riparian corridor that is literally touching your proposed location, immediately adjacent to, like right next to where your location would be, or if it's situated very, very closely such that, you know, you could walk from one to the other in a matter of minutes. Obvious proximity means immediately up gradient. When there's a little bit more distance between your proposed or alternative location and a wetland or riparian corridor, what you're going to want to think about is looking at potential migration pathways. If a spill or a release were to move off that location, would it impact a wetland or a riparian corridor? So again, this is one of those things, we don't have a hard, fast distance. There's not an actual setback. We want common sense to sort of be your guide for that. And we would ask that you be conservative in your designation of what immediately up gradient means. The meaning behind, the intent behind this ALA criteria is to avoid potential impacts. And so when you're looking at your potential proposed locations and alternative locations, we'd like you to consider those locations without the benefit of BMPs. This rule is meant for citing potential locations, not how will I mitigate a location if I put it next to a wetland. So there is a little bit of a distinction there. Hannah, next slide, please. So then how do you determine if something is immediately up gradient? You're going to want to do a desktop review. These are pretty standard. I think everybody's already doing this. You can look at the National Wetland Inventory layer. We have that layer on our GIS system on our website. You're going to want to look at USGS topo maps, aerial photos, that sort of thing. Also, you're going to want to consider the topography of the land between your potential location and the water body. Look at soil types. Is there a clear surface pathway for fluids to migrate from your location to a wetland or riparian corridor? You're also going to want to consider the hydraulic, hydrologic, and soil types for any sort of potential subsurface pathway. It's a really good idea if you have the ability to do an on-site. A mapped wetland or riparian corridor may not actually be present. I know in some cases the USGS topo maps are fairly old. They can be outdated. And so it's a really good idea to go out there and do an on-site and actually see if a formally mapped wetland or riparian corridor is actually present. If it's not present or you don't believe that it's present anymore, we would appreciate if you could provide some sort of evidence, whether those are photos that you've taken on your on-site or recent drone imagery, something to show us that, yes, it's mapped by NWI, or yes, it shows up on a USGS topo map, but here's what it looks like in the current conditions. So again, just to recap, we don't have a hard set distance for what is immediately up gradient. There's a little bit more nuance to consider, and we ask everyone to be conservative in their consideration of that. And I think that's all I have, Hannah.
Excellent. Thank you, Sabrina. I believe you are up next as well. Oh, no, you went over both of those items. Oh, no, we have the immediate. Never mind. Yes, we're good. So next up is Dave Andrews, and I believe you have a new offset well evaluation template. Let me just bring that over into the limelight. And Dave, when you're ready, you may begin. Oh, hopefully I unmuted you. Let me just check on that real quick.
Thank you, Hannah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dave Andrews, the engineering manager. Hannah, could you please advance to the next slide? A couple of things that I wanted to go over today. First, we have a new offset well evaluation template that is available on our, well, I'll give you the path there. So as you're clicking through the website, you would first go to regulation, then forms, then permit to drill, which is our form 2. And then we have a list of data template items, and offset well evaluation is one of those. Hannah, next slide, please. So this is what it looks like when you open it up on the first tab. It is an Excel file. And the reason for the recent change to the template is over in column K for the required comments. That used to be merged with adjoining cells off to the right, and we unmerged that mostly for our data input requirements because we need to have that in a single column. So for any operators that have their own template downloaded pre-filled, you're going to have to go back to the website and grab this new template for your submittals on Form 2s. Next slide, please, Hannah. The next item is a follow-up to Steve Jenkins' presentation at the operator meeting from last month. In that presentation, he talked about wellbore diagrams that are a required attachment for Form 17 Bradenhead tests. And there were some questions that popped up regarding any guidance that we might have on wellbore diagrams. So on this slide, again, it's routing through our website to the form section. So it's in regulation. I think I should have form in there. And then it's Form 5A completed interval report. And starting with the form instructions, we have guidance on casing and cement nomenclature. So what that relates to is how you construct your wellbore diagram using the casing string designations that we have available in our other forms. So we've got surface casing and first string or production casing on this particular figure. So when you download that guidance, it actually has 7 different pages with 7 different types of wellbores. So with and without conductor, 2-string design, 3-string design, liners, tapers, a bunch of different examples that you can go to as you're constructing your own wellbore diagrams. Hannah, next slide, please. And we also have some suggested wellbore diagram guidance. So this has information such as the information that you need to label on the diagram, different features that you may have in the wellbore, and also some more information on what might be included in a wellbore diagram. Some of these rule references in here are a bit dated, so we'll have to get that updated. Right now it's referring to Rule 303 and 317. As of the mission change rules in January of this year, the forms were renumbered. So we will get this guidance updated at least with the new rule references. Next slide, please, Hannah. And I think we're still saving questions for the end.
Thanks, Dave. And yes, please chat your questions in as they come up to you. I believe Sabrina has a quick announcement, and then Laurel will present on the Form 4.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. Sorry, this is not on the agenda. I just wanted to congratulate Laurel Faber. Many of you know that James Hicks was in the OGLA group and he moved into Dave Andrews' Orphan Well program. So congrats to James. And then in backfilling that vacancy left by James Hicks, we have hired Laurel Faber out of Penny Garrison's permitting group. So a little bit of switching of seats here. So congratulations to Laurel.
Great, thank you, Sabrina. And yes, congratulations, Laurel. And Laurel, you can go ahead and test your mic out and then present on the Form 4.
Awesome, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. Good morning, everyone. My name is Laurel Faber, and I am the permitting contact for the Form 4 revisions. I've been with the COGCC for 4 years within the permitting group, and am currently transitioning to OGLA. I have a bachelor's in geology from CU Boulder and about 4 years of industry experience as a well site geologist and geophysicist. So really quickly, I just have 2 quick updates to the objective formation section of the Form 4. So we have added a 4th option. Well, okay, so we've changed it from saying maintain to no change, and then added a 4th option, which is modify. If you click on modify, it will ungray and make editable the boxes for spacing order number, unit acreage, and unit configuration. And this should be used in case of an amended spacing order, or if you ever notice that a previous form was approved with incorrect information. So that's all I have as a quick update for that. And please send me an email if you see any errors or come to any problems with this update.
Great job. Thanks, Laurel. Next up, I believe we have Greg, and let me just make that transition. All right, and Greg, hopefully I have unmuted her. One or two folks, oh, sorry, Greg, real quick. 1 or 2 folks have said that they weren't able to hear Laurel. I heard her just fine. I'm not going to have her start over, but perhaps at the end, if we have some time, she can briefly go over that again. I heard her just fine, and several other people did as well, and so I'm thinking that it may be an issue on that end. So thank you, and we will post the recording to this, of course, as we always do. I usually get it up in a couple of days. So thank you. Greg, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Hannah. And can you hear me? I tend to be fairly loud. So yeah, Laurel's volume was fairly low, but without a lot of background noise, I could definitely hear. So, all right, so I'm going to just briefly speak about Rule 909J, which is the requirement for produced water analyses from for pits. So next slide, please, Hannah. 909J says that beginning January 15th, 2021, operators will submit water quality analysis from for each well from which produced water is sent to a pit. And that includes new and existing pits. Next slide, please. So the timing of the sampling requirements is a little bit interesting. As the previous slide showed, the rule goes into effect January 15th, applies to all pits that were previously constructed and new pits after that. But the operators are required to submit water quality analysis using a Form 43, which most of you are all familiar with. You're using that for Bradenhead gas samples and water baseline water samples, and that needs to be submitted within 3 months of the sample collection. And the results of the samples must be submitted to COGCC no later than July 15th, 2022, or prior to pit closure. So we still have some time on this, but next slide, please, Hannah. So to date, COGCC has received 77 Form 43s. So the rule's been in effect for about 10 months, and we've received 77 Form 43s. 66 of those were from one operator who operates a high number of pits. I want to kind of point out that there are 3,400 active pits listed in the COGIS database. So that means there are a lot of Form 43s to be submitted. So that's the reason for this reminder, is that we know there are a lot of pits out there that are being operated and will be subject to this rule, but we're not seeing that data yet. with that note, I also want to turn to a Rule 909A reminder and just point out that 909A requires pits to be properly permitted or registered, accurately mapped, and listed according to the current facility records in the COGCC database. So if you're not sure whether or not Rule 909J applies to you, you need to look at 909A and make sure that you're in compliance with that and you know the pits that you're responsible for. So next slide, please, Hannah. So in order to find out which pits that you're responsible for and this rule applies to, use the COGCC facility inquiry, select data, select COGCC or COGCC database, and select the facility inquiry. Next slide, please. And select from the facility type pit for the facility status. Start with active and then enter your operator name or number and hit submit, and you'll get a return of the pits that you have that are listed as active. I encourage you to also look at the pits that are unstatused, and maybe in your name, you may have a pit that is listed as unstatused, and that needs to be rectified in our database as well. One other thing that you do need to do is look at the facilities that are related to your wells. You may have pits that are related to your wells that are associated with your wells, but they're not listed in your operator name. So I want to encourage you to take the opportunity to look for those as well. Next slide, please, Hannah. And these are just some examples of what we want to see on the left. You can see we have a producing well. We have a couple of pits. It looks like 3 pits are registered and listed as active. And when we turn on the location layer at the bottom, we see that those are all related through the location ID. On the right, we have what we don't want, and this is what 909A is attempting to correct. And that is where we have a number of unstatused pits. Those are the white squares, and they are not mapped on facilities. One of them is mapped exactly on top of a well. So they're not accurately mapped and they're not accurately statused. I didn't look into this too far, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're also not associated with the correct operator in that example. Next slide, please, Hannah. So I'll also point you all to the presentation that was provided on March 9th on the same rule 909J, and also included that 909A reminder. There's a link there in this presentation to the presentation by Peter Gontadas, but we also have a guidance, and I kind of messed up the link, so I will update this slide that Hannah will post with the link to the actual guidance document as well. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Greg. This might actually be a good opportunity to show folks where that is located on the website. This might be annoying to some of you who come all the time, but to those who don't, here's how you find it. I think you go to regulation and then operator guidance, and then down here to past meeting agendas, etc. And then you just scroll down to whichever one. I believe it's in here somewhere. Or was it the second? Oh, there it is, 909.
March 9th. Yep.
There we go. So you would just click on that and boom, it'll let it load. All right, next up, I believe we have Jane with the web forms release. Jane, do you want to test out your speaker real quick?
Sure. How's that?
Very good, thank you.
Great, thanks. You know, I just wanted to jump in with a reminder. We were a couple weeks into turning off the old e-forms and turning on the web forms. I appreciate that people are sending their issues in. Just a reminder, please always send your issue that you encounter with a particular form to the staff contact who's designated for that form. And when you do have a problem, be sure and send the poor staff person the document number of the form you're working on, and if you get an error message, a screenshot of that error message. And that's it. Easy. Thanks, Hannah.
Great, thanks, Jane. Next up, we have John Noto with a reminder on the 312 box on Form 4. John, will you check your audio real quick?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, well, you're a little soft, so I'm a little suspicious. Maybe just speak up a little bit, please.
Okay, how about now?
I think that should be good. I'm sure folks will let us know.
Okay, just a quick reminder about the Rule 312 reviews that the OGLA staff is doing, and the updated Form 4 with the checkbox for Rule 312 subsequent operations. Then the new form has a lot of opportunity for operators to give us information in the text boxes and to check the notice of intent and exactly what they're doing. That as we get a flood of 312s, Rule 312 sundries in, we're just asking for operators to take some time and help us out by putting the right information on the form to allow us to sort those. And that is the length of my reminder. So we can take questions after this if anyone has any, but just want to let everyone know that it's very helpful for the right information to go on the form. Thanks.
Great, thanks, John. And let me queue up Laurel's slide again, and she will present that a second time. Laurel, will you check your mic for me real quick?
Yeah, can everybody hear me better this time?
I think so. I'm sure folks will let us know. Okay, I've got barely and not really and no. The people that have the same computers as we have can hear. We'll just give a moment to check those Zoom settings. Sometimes there's a way to increase the mic value. Laurel, you also could try headphones if you've got those handy, but if you don't, then that's understandable also.
Yeah, so is it getting any better, anybody?
I'm gonna have to rely on the comment section because I hear you just fine. Okay, we've got at least one.
Laurel, it's still pretty quiet. And if you are using earbud mic and your computer has a microphone built in, I've found that people can actually hear me better when I'm not using the earbud with the mic in it.
Okay, I have at least one person that said they couldn't hear you before say that they can now, but it's hard to keep track. How about the one with the last name Kendrick? I haven't seen them chime in, but they could not hear it all the last time, so I want to make sure they can hear this time too. And to the guy that said, seriously, I'd like to know if you can hear well as well.
Let's see here.
Still got a not really from HT.
I think that's better, Laurel.
That's better?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Then we will do it this way. Okay, so let me see if I can pull this up again. So I just have two quick updates for the objective formation section of the Form 4. We have changed the name from maintain to no change. And then we've added a fourth option, which is modify. So modify, if you click that checkbox, it will make the unit configuration, unit acreage, and spacing order number editable. And this should be used if you need to amend the spacing order, or if you have ever noticed that any previous Form 2s or Form 4s were approved with the incorrect information. So that should be all that I have. And please contact me if you have any information, if you have any errors pop up, or if you have any problems using this new modify option on the Form 4.
Great, thank you, Laurel. And if
Thanks,
there's any
Laurel.
questions, just go ahead and chat those in, and we'll go ahead and get started on the Q&A. Our first question is, so can you quickly review the Wellbore requirement on the braid and head testing? And Dave, would you like me to pull up your presentation?
No, actually, I've got something else to run through. So that comes out of Rule 420, which is for the Form 17 braid and head test report. And that rule states that the operator will submit their Form 17 braid and head test report, or submit using another method, which is the bulk upload option that we have available for the test data. And furthermore, the operator will include a Wellbore diagram if not previously submitted, or if the Wellbore configuration has changed since the last Wellbore diagram was submitted. So Wellbore diagrams may be submitted as an attachment to Form 17, or if the bulk upload method is being used by the operator, we do not have a function that will allow bulk submittal of attachments, which would include Wellbore diagrams. So the only options at this point are to submit those with a Form 17 or separately with a Form 4 sundry notice, if you are using the bulk upload option.
All right, thanks, Dave. Our next question is, will the past due MIT report be added to web forms?
I guess I can take that too. Staff has informed me that the function is not currently working in web forms. It was in e-forms, so I'll have to circle back with IT to try and get that working again.
Great, thanks, Dave. And the next question is, with holiday/flu season/time off coming up, will backup SME for each form be established and posted?
I'll take that one, Hannah.
Okay.
No, they won't. But when you look at who is the designated person, and if you get an out of office, if that person is an engineer, just contact another engineer. If that person is a permitter, contact your favorite permitter. If that person is an OGLA, contact your favorite OGLA, and they will give you some help.
Great, thank you, Jane. The next question is, where can we check to see if a Wellbore diagram has been submitted?
You can check for Wellbore diagrams on the scout card for the well, and then there's a link called DOC for documents, and that includes all of the scanned images and PDFs that are available for that particular well. So it is a well file by well file search.
Great, Dave, thank you. And next question is, I have noticed web forms slowing down throughout the day, sometimes taking upwards of 5 minutes just to save. Is this a known issue with web forms? Are any other users experiencing the same slowdown?
I'll take that one. Yes, all users are experiencing that slowdown, both internal and external. And our developers are working on some performance improvement to address that issue.
Great, thank you, Jane. And the next question is, when will guidance on the Ogdp map be released? Additional Form 2A guidance?
Hannah, this is Sabrina. I'll take that one. We are still working on a lot of different guidance documents for Form 2As and OGDPs in the OGLA group. We will continue to publish guidance as we have it ready. I do want to just thank everyone for your continued patience. The OGLA staff is pretty busy at the moment. We're getting a lot of requests, for applications to be reviewed, and completeness and technical review and sundries and Form 6s, and a lot of other urgent requests from operators. So by default, guidance has slipped a little bit lower on the list as we're trying to triage everyone's information for them. So again, thank you for your continued patience. We are still working on guidance documents.
Thank you, Sabrina. The next question is, can we submit the Wellbore diagram on a Form 5A?
Yes.
But only if a 5A is needed. If you have already submitted your 5A and there isn't a need for you to submit another 5A, and you want to submit a wellbore diagram to get it in the well file so that you can use the bulk upload for your Form 17, then you use a sundry.
And Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the past, has that been reserved for permit techs requesting a wellbore diagram from the operator, or is that a common submittal?
On a 5A,
Yes.
it's optional. It's not required by rule, or is it?
No, it's not. I checked earlier.
I always wanted to change that rule and we didn't get it changed. So yeah, if you're sending in a 5A, we love wellbore diagrams on your 5As. But don't send a new 5A just to get a wellbore diagram in. Please use a sundry. And use it, there's a checkbox for your just sending in the sundry to submit a document. And you just put in the little text box, sending in a wellbore diagram.
Great.
Attach it and hit submit.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Dave. The next question is, when submitting a new Form 4 for 312, why isn't checking the 312 sufficient for validation? What if our subsequent operations don't fit one of the other boxes? The other text box doesn't allow for a lot of explanation. Should you just put 312 and then explain more fully under 312 box?
So I'll try and take this one. This sounds like a business rule question. And Jane might have to help me out with this one also, but no, the subsequent well operations checkbox, which is new checkbox, is what we want you to check. You can put a comment under that to describe what your operation is, and timing is also helpful on that. It's the notice of intent request for approval box should also be checked. And then any appropriate boxes underneath that box, which describe the planned activity. And hopefully that answers the question, and we can follow up if it's still not clear.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. The next question is, in the new offset well evaluation upload, are the upload errors being shown yet?
If we have Diana or Diane on the call, I'd like their help with this one.
Give me just a moment to find them. And Diana Byrne, I think, is DB. I don't see that. Let me check McCoy. McCoy is here. Just a moment. Right.
If she's not, I have a comment on it.
Diane McCoy is on. Are you able to help out, Diane? Let's see. Oh, I found Diana Byrne too. Let me make her a co-host and either one of them. There we go.
Hannah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Thank you, Diane.
And so the question is, will the scout card be updated with the wellbore diagram? Like, does it mean the wellbore diagram link on the top of the scout card?
No, we're on the wellbore evaluation.
It's okay. I can just read it again. In the new offset well evaluation upload, are the upload errors being shown yet?
Yes, they are being shown. That as a pop-up, and if the error, like we experienced last week, was an API related, it pops up and it tells you what row number your error was on. So it'll say row 34 error, and then you can look at your Excel sheet and go to that row and check your data on that one. But it doesn't show off the side as our normal validation errors and hang out there. It's a pop-up due to when it's first imported onto the form. So when that pop-up message comes up, make sure you read it and pay attention to what it says, and don't just click OK without paying attention.
Okay, thank you, Diane. The next question is, when a wellbore diagram is submitted along with the Form 17, Will the scout card be updated with that attached wellbore diagram as a separate entry?
So if that is referring to like the casing lines and cementing information that's on the scout card for the completed wellbore, the answer would be no. Presumably the first time the completion report was submitted, it was accurate by the operator. So if there have been changes to the casing or cement in the wellbore and those have not been reported, then that would be non-compliance with a different rule. So operators need to submit Form 5s and Form 5As, completion reports and completed interval reports as required by other rules whenever changes are made to the wellbore.
Anna, can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Diana. I think the ask was, I think the ask was if it's submitted with the Form 17, will it show up in the doc list as a separate entry? And it will. That's the way I took the question.
Thanks, Diana, and we have confirmation on that, so thank you. And we don't have any more questions right now, but maybe folks are typing, so we'll just give them a few more minutes. I will advance my slide to the last one. Oh, go ahead, Jane.
Can you, so in Greg's presentation, he made the point that there are pits related to wells that do not have an accurate operator. So if an operator is looking for their active pits and they follow the steps Greg outlined, they put in their operator name or number and get a list of pits. There could be pits that are related to their wells that don't come up in that list. And the tool that was developed for the Form 9 to identify related facilities could be a great help for operators trying to identify pits that aren't currently assigned to their operator but are related to their wells. Hannah, if you could drive,
Okay.
we could go there.
Give me just a moment. I've got a lot of stuff up on my screen.
And Jane, I appreciate you bringing this up. I will add a slide to my presentation to mention this as well, but I'll let you walk through this.
Yeah, we'll just walk through it. So you go to regulation and go to forms and then scroll to the Form 9 and hit the name of the form to go to the instructions page. And right there at the top of under the templates, it says Form 9 transfer of operatorship tools. So if you could click that, please, Hannah. And then you're going to click on related wells and facilities. And then in the API box, you can put up to 500 APIs in there, but we're just going to do one. So Hannah, please type 123-12345 and hit submit or search, I guess it says. And here is a great example. So that was an API of a well, and you can see in the related facilities, there are 2 pits. One is closed, one has no status, and that's one of the things Greg mentioned, that some pits have no status. And the reason this is a great example is that the well, the KC well, the current operator of record is Griffin Management. But you can see both the pits have different operators. And that's why that search by operator, if you were Griffin Management and you did a search of pits with just your name, these 2 pits wouldn't come up, and most likely many others. So this is a really awesome tool to help you identify pits that actually are your responsibility. They're related to your well or your location, but they didn't get transferred in the old days when we used to not scrutinize our Form 10s. So anyway, yeah, Greg, if you add that, that'd be cool, because this is a great tool.
Yeah, it is, Jane. Thanks very much. And that's a great example. So Griffin management would be responsible for looking into that pit that's unstatused and in a different operator's name and make sure that that record is cleaned up.
Yep.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Greg. The next question is,
Thanks, Hannah.
yeah,
Yeah, for driving.
totally. Is there a reason for the additional Wellbore diagram submittal when there is a Wellbore tab on the scout card?
Yes. Basically, we want to make sure that the configuration is current. So there are situations, particularly with older wells, going back a couple of decades or so, where the information on the Form 5 or even the 5A may not accurately represent the wellbore. So that's the purpose of the wellbore diagram, or one purpose. The other purpose is for the operator to look at the casing and cement configuration and also take a look at the geological formations, which are either covered or not covered with cement to help to identify the source of Braden head pressure. So again, this is only required with a Form 17 or where a Braden head test is required by rule, which now under the new rules is once per year per well in the state.
Thanks, Dave. The next question is just a comment. When doing an offset well evaluation, I use the mapping tool selection list to get the list of wells. In the new format, the API number is now in 3 columns, so it exports to Excel to 3 columns. This causes the leading 0 in the well number to be dropped, whereas when the API number was in 1 column, the well number did not drop the 0. Let me see if there's any other questions. We don't have any more questions right now. I'm going to put my my presentation back up with the information about the next meetings. If I can find it. Okay. And we'll just see if anybody else has any questions for another few minutes.
Thanks, Hannah, for your great help on this. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Sure.
Happy Tuesday.
Ah, I knew there was going to be at least one more. I was waiting.
Just inside the bell.
If you find legacy pits, what is the best way to clean up the status and current operator? Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So start with researching the records in the COGCC database. Research the records that you as the operator may have, including what you received if you acquired that asset from another operator. And then you can also, ultimately, you will work with, the environmental protection specialist to make sure if a pit was closed, it was closed in accordance with the rules that were applicable at the time. And if the pit was not closed in accordance with applicable rules, that the site investigation is done to make sure that it is. There are cases where there are duplicate pit records. In those cases, you may find that one pit is just outstanding, but it is a duplicate record, and in that case, it can be administratively closed.
Thank you, Greg. I'll go ahead and do my wrap up, and then if we have questions come in during that, then we will answer them. The next operator meeting will be Tuesday, December 14th. I'll send out a notification if it's changed for whatever reason. And then here's a list of the next operator meetings up until June 14th. I'll go ahead and add some more probably around February or March. If you need to be added to the operator email list, please email me at the email address provided for you there and make sure you get the last name spelling correct. Otherwise, I will not get your email. And then, okay, Alex just said, look at the pit inventory of the old operators. So thank you for that, Alex. And yep, it looks like our meeting has come to an end. Again, everybody, thank you so much for coming and joining us today for the operator meeting. We look forward to seeing you on Tuesday, December 14th. Have a great day.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah.